Hello and welcome to Book Momentum. Here we delve into the world's most impactful books, bringing their core ideas to life through storytelling. Today, we explore a book that has fundamentally changed how we think about thinking itself. We're diving into Thinking Fast and Slow by Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman. First published in 2011, this groundbreaking book uncovers the two systems that drive the way we think. One fast and intuitive, the other slow and deliberate. This isn't just a book, it's a tour of the mind's architecture. Kahneman reveals the hidden biases and mental shortcuts that shape our judgments and decisions every single day, often without our awareness. Prepare to meet the two characters living in your head, the fast, intuitive, and emotional System 1, and the slow, deliberate, and logical System 2. Their constant interaction defines who we are and how we choose. Join us as we unpack the profound insights of thinking fast and slow. By the end, you'll have a richer vocabulary to discuss human error and a deeper understanding of your own mind. Daniel Kahneman, along with his late collaborator Amos Tversky, pioneered the field of behavioral economics. His work challenged the long-held belief that human decision-making is primarily rational. Though a psychologist, Kahneman was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences in 2002. This was for his groundbreaking work on prospect theory, which explained how people make decisions under uncertainty. The book argues that our minds are governed by two distinct systems. System 1 is the fast, automatic, and intuitive hero of our mental life, while System 2 is the slow, effortful, and lazy controller that thinks it's in charge. Kahneman contrasts the fictional econs of economic theory, who are perfectly rational, with real humans who are driven by emotion and prone to predictable errors. The book is a deep dive into the psychology of humans. Ultimately, Kahneman's goal is to enrich our everyday language. He provides us with the terms and concepts needed to identify and understand the cognitive biases that influence us all, from the boardroom to the water cooler. We begin with Part 1, where Kahneman introduces the two main characters of his story, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is the star of the show. It operates automatically and quickly, handling tasks like recognizing faces, driving on an empty road, or answering 2 + 2. It's our effortless, intuitive self. System 2 is the deliberate, reasoning self. It's who we think we are. This system handles complex computations, focuses attention, and is mobilized when System 1 runs into trouble. Think of solving 17 times 24. System 2 runs on a limited budget of mental effort. Kahneman shows how pupil dilation can literally measure cognitive strain. When System 2 is engaged in a hard task, we can become effectively blind to other things, as proven by the famous invisible gorilla experiment. A crucial trait of System 2 is its laziness. It follows the law of least effort, often defaulting to the easy answers provided by System 1. This is why a simple puzzle like the bat and ball problem tricks so many people. Checking the intuitive answer requires effort. System 1 works through a process called associative activation. One idea triggers a cascade of related ideas, emotions, and even physical responses. This is the mechanism behind priming, where seeing the word eat might make you complete SOP as soup. When our mind operates smoothly, we experience cognitive ease. This feeling is linked to truth, familiarity, and a good mood. Things that are repeated, clearly displayed, or primed feel easier and therefore more true. System 1 is a machine for jumping to conclusions. It operates on a principle Kahneman calls wizziati. What you see is all there is. It constructs the most coherent story possible from the limited information it has, suppressing doubt and ambiguity. When faced with a difficult question, System 1 often substitutes it with an easier one. Instead of asking, "How happy are you with your life?" it answers, "What is my mood right now?" This mental shortcut, substitution, is the source of many of our biases. Now we move to Part 2, which explores the specific mental shortcuts or heuristics that System 1 uses, and the systematic errors or biases they create. We have an irrational faith in small samples. Our minds seek causes and patterns, leading us to believe that a small study's results are more representative than they actually are. We invent stories to explain what is often just random chance. The anchoring effect is a powerful bias, where our estimates are pulled toward an initial, even random number. If you're first asked if Gandhi was older or younger than 140 when he died, your subsequent guess of his age will be much higher than if the anchor was 35. We judge the frequency of an event by the ease with which examples come to mind. Because plane crashes are heavily reported, we often think they're more common than less dramatic killers like diabetes. This is the availability heuristic. Our perception of risk is often driven by emotion, not statistics. A vivid image or a scary story can trigger an availability cascade, where a minor risk becomes a public panic, driven by media and emotional reactions. Kahneman uses the story of Tom W., a stereotypical nerd, to illustrate the representativeness heuristic. We predict his field of study based on how well he matches a stereotype, completely ignoring the base rates, the actual number of students in each field. The famous Linda problem reveals the conjunction fallacy. Most people think it's more probable that Linda is a feminist bank teller than just a bank teller. The more detailed, representative story feels more plausible, even though it is statistically less probable. We are more likely to use statistical information if it's framed in a causal way. 85% of cabs are green is a statistic we ignore. Green cabs are reckless and cause 85% of accidents is a causal story we use to make judgments. Extreme performances tend to be followed by more average ones. A flight instructor might believe yelling at a pilot for a bad landing works because the next landing is usually better. In reality, this is just regression to the mean, a statistical fact for which we invent false causes. Our intuitive predictions are often biased and non-regressive. To make better forecasts, Kahneman advises a 4-step process. Start with the average. Make your intuitive prediction. Estimate the correlation. And then adjust your prediction toward the average. In Part 3, we confront one of the most significant consequences of our cognitive biases, our pervasive and often unwarranted overconfidence. We constantly fool ourselves by constructing flawed stories of the past. This is the narrative fallacy. Combined with hindsight bias, the "I knew it all along" effect, it creates an illusion that the world is more predictable than it is. Subjective confidence is a feeling, not a judgment. It reflects the coherence of the story our mind has created, not the quality of the evidence. This is why stock pickers feel confident in their skill, even when statistical evidence proves it's an illusion. In low-validity environments, simple statistical formulas consistently outperform expert human judgment. Algorithms are better because they are consistent and not swayed by compelling but irrelevant details. Yet, we have a strong bias against them. True expert intuition is not magic, it's recognition learned over time. It can only be trusted under 2 conditions: a regular, predictable environment, and an opportunity for prolonged practice with clear, rapid feedback. The planning fallacy is our tendency to make overly optimistic plans by focusing on our specific case, the inside view. The cure is to use the outside view. Look at the statistics of similar projects. This grounds our forecasts in reality. The optimistic bias is a double-edged sword. While it leads to flawed planning, it also fuels entrepreneurship and innovation. The economy is driven by optimistic individuals who ignore the high odds of failure, a delusion that is beneficial for society but often disastrous for them. To combat over-optimism, Kahneman suggests a premortem. Before a big decision, the team imagines it is 1 year in the future and the project has failed spectacularly. Each member then writes a brief history of that failure, uncovering potential threats that were overlooked. Part 4 introduces Kahneman's Nobel Prize-winning work, which dismantles traditional economic theories of choice and presents a more psychologically realistic alternative. Traditional economic theory assumed that utility depends on absolute states of wealth. Kahneman argues this is a fundamental error. Our happiness depends not on how much we have, but on the changes, the gains and losses, relative to a reference point. Prospect theory is Kahneman and Tversky's alternative model. It's built on 3 pillars. Evaluation is relative to a reference point. We experience diminishing sensitivity to both gains and losses. And most importantly, we are driven by loss aversion. Losses loom larger than gains. The pain of losing $100 is psychologically more powerful than the pleasure of gaining $100, typically by a factor of 2. This simple principle explains a vast range of human behaviors. Because of loss aversion, we value things more simply because we own them. In a classic experiment, people demand twice as much money to sell a coffee mug they were given than they are willing to pay to buy the exact same mug. Loss aversion is rooted in a broader biological truth. Bad is stronger than good. Our brains are wired to prioritize threats over opportunities. A single cockroach ruins a bowl of cherries, but a single cherry does nothing for a bowl of cockroaches. Prospect theory predicts our attitudes to risk in a 4-fold pattern. We are risk-averse when it comes to high-probability gains and low-probability losses, which is why we take a sure win and buy insurance. But we become risk-seeking for low-probability gains and high-probability losses, explaining why we buy lottery tickets and make desperate gambles. Our minds don't handle rare events rationally. We either ignore them completely, or if our attention is drawn to them, we overweight their probability. Vivid imagery and emotional descriptions make us fear a 1 in a million chance far more than we should. To overcome irrational loss aversion, Kahneman advocates for broad framing. Instead of viewing each small risk in isolation, bundle them together. A risk policy, like never buy extended warranties, helps you make rational choices that are better in the long run. We use mental accounts to track our activities, a form of narrow framing. This leads to fallacies like the sunk cost fallacy, throwing good money after bad, and the disposition effect, where investors are more willing to sell winning stocks than losing ones. Our preferences can be shockingly inconsistent. When we evaluate options one at a time, we rely on emotion. When we compare them side by side, we become more analytical. This can lead us to prefer option A in isolation, but choose option B in a direct comparison. How a choice is framed can change the decision, even if the underlying reality is identical. A surgery with a 90% survival rate is appealing, while one with a 10% mortality rate is terrifying. Our choices are often attached to the frame, not the reality. In the final part of the book, Kahneman introduces his most profound distinction: the difference between our experiencing self and our remembering self. The experiencing self is the part of you that lives in the present. It's the self that answers the question, does it hurt now? It lives life moment by moment through a continuous stream of experiences. The remembering self is the storyteller. It answers the question, how was it, on the whole? This is the self that keeps score, learns lessons, and, crucially, makes all our decisions about the future. The remembering self does not average our experiences. It is governed by the peak-end rule. Our memory of an event is dominated by its most intense moment, the peak, and how it felt at the very end. Astonishingly, the length of an experience has almost no impact on our memory of it. A 30-minute, painful procedure that ends well is remembered more favorably than a 10-minute procedure that ends badly. The remembering self neglects duration. This leads to a conflict. The remembering self, which makes our choices, will often choose to repeat an experience that was objectively worse for the experiencing self, simply because it left a better memory. This is the tyranny of the remembering self. We don't want a happy life in the sense of an accumulation of happy moments. We want a life with a good story. And stories are defined by their significant events and, most importantly, their endings. The remembering self is a narrator. Kahneman explores how to measure the happiness of the experiencing self. He finds that our moment-to-moment mood is determined by what we are paying attention to. High income improves life satisfaction, but beyond about $75,000 a year, it doesn't improve our daily experienced happiness. The book's final major idea is the focusing illusion. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it. When we focus on one aspect of life, like climate or money, we vastly exaggerate its importance to our overall well-being. Kahneman concludes by tying together the book's major themes. We are not the rational econs of economic models. We are humans, guided by a fallible System 1. Our choices are made by a remembering self that often shortchanges our experiencing self. Because we are prone to error, Kahneman endorses the idea of libertarian paternalism. This involves designing choices and systems, or nudges, that help our flawed human minds make better decisions, without restricting our freedom to choose otherwise. In the end, the greatest tool the book gives us is a richer vocabulary. By learning to identify concepts like anchoring, Wisiati, and the planning fallacy, we can become better critics of our own thinking and the thinking of others. To recap, our minds have two systems. The fast, intuitive System 1 generates impressions and feelings which are often adopted by the lazy, deliberate System 2. This interplay leads to predictable biases, overconfidence, and choices that are not always in our best interest. We construct stories about the past that make events seem orderly and inevitable. This hindsight bias creates an illusion of understanding, leading to overconfidence in predicting the future. Our subjective confidence reflects the coherence of the story our mind creates, not its accuracy. We feel certain even when evidence is weak, a powerful illusion that affects experts and laypeople alike. True expertise requires a predictable environment and extensive practice with feedback. Without these, an expert's intuition is often no better than a guess, no matter how confident they feel. We are naturally drawn to the inside view, focusing on the specifics of our plans and underestimating obstacles. This leads to the planning fallacy, where projects consistently take longer and cost more than anticipated. Prospect theory revolutionized economics by showing that our choices are based on gains and losses from a reference point. We hate losing more than we like winning, a simple truth that explains the endowment effect and our aversion to risk. Our risk attitudes are predictable. We play it safe with likely gains but gamble on long shots. Conversely, we gamble to avoid a likely loss but pay a premium to insure against a rare disaster. Identical information can lead to different choices based on its presentation. Saves 200 lives feels different from 400 people will die. This shows that our preferences are not always based on pure logic, but on the emotions evoked by words. The distinction between the experiencing self, living in the moment, and the remembering self, telling the story, is crucial. Our decisions are dominated by the remembering self, which prioritizes good stories over good experiences. Our memories are a highlight reel, not a full recording. They are shaped by the most intense moments and the ending, while the duration is largely ignored. This is why a long vacation with a bad ending can be remembered as worse than a short one that ended perfectly. We consistently misjudge what will make us happy because we focus on a single factor and exaggerate its importance. This illusion leads us to chase things that have surprisingly little impact on our actual day-to-day well-being. System 2, our conscious self, requires effort to engage. Its natural tendency is to be lazy and to accept the intuitive suggestions of System 1 without question. Overcoming this laziness is the key to better thinking. System 1 connects ideas through a vast, unconscious network of associations. This is why priming works and why our thoughts can be influenced by subtle cues in our environment without our knowledge. Familiarity breeds liking. We prefer things that are easy for our minds to process. This is why repetition is such a powerful tool in persuasion. A lie told often enough begins to feel true. What you see is all there is a fundamental operating principle of System 1. It jumps to conclusions based on available evidence, no matter how sparse, and fails to consider what it doesn't know. Events that are recent, dramatic, or personal are more available to our minds. We mistake this ease of recall for high frequency, skewing our perception of risk and probability. We judge people and events based on how well they match our stereotypes. This leads us to ignore base rates and make predictions that are based on plausibility rather than probability. Our judgments are easily swayed by initial numbers. A negotiator's first offer, a product's list price, or even a random number can act as an anchor, pulling our subsequent thoughts in its direction. Luck plays a huge role in performance. Extreme results are often followed by more average ones, a statistical fact we ignore in favor of creating causal stories about praise and punishment. Throughout the book, Kahneman emphasizes the collaboration with Amos Tversky. Their partnership, a blend of brilliant minds challenging each other, was the engine that produced these revolutionary ideas. The book is a fundamental challenge to the rational agent model that dominated economics. It shows that our psychology, with all its flaws and shortcuts, is an inseparable part of how we make economic decisions. The insights from Thinking Fast and Slow have practical applications everywhere. They inform public policy, medical diagnoses, business strategy, and personal finance, helping us design systems that account for human nature. Kahneman is sober about our ability to improve. Even after a lifetime of studying these biases, he admits his own thinking is still prone to them. The best we can do is learn to recognize the cognitive minefields and slow down when it matters most. The book's ultimate contribution is providing a shared language to talk about thinking. Being able to say, "That's a classic case of anchoring," or "Let's take the outside view," elevates the quality of our collective decision-making. Despite its flaws, Kahneman frames System 1 as the hero of the book. It is the source of our expertise, our creativity, and most of what we do right. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to understand its limits. System 2's proper role is as a monitor and endorser. It can learn to recognize situations where System 1 is likely to err and step in to correct the course. This requires vigilance and a willingness to expend mental effort. The book firmly establishes that we are humans, not econs. We don't have the minds of statisticians or logicians. Acknowledging this reality is the first step toward building a world that is better designed for the minds we actually have. Our aversion to accepting a loss leads us to invest more in a failing project. We honor sunk costs to avoid the pain of admitting failure, a costly error that mental accounting encourages. The fear of future regret is a powerful motivator. We are especially sensitive to the regret that comes from action, commission, rather than inaction, omission, which can paralyze our decision-making. A consequence of Wisiati, the halo effect is our tendency to let a first impression color all other judgments. If we like one thing about a person, we tend to like everything, creating a simple, coherent, but often inaccurate picture. Our emotions often get there first. The affect heuristic is a shortcut where we substitute the hard question, "What do I think about this?" with the easier question, "How do I feel about this?" Our likes and dislikes become our beliefs about the world. In unpredictable environments like the stock market, our feeling of skill is often an illusion. The combination of chance and our tendency to create causal stories makes us believe we are in control when we are not. We overweight outcomes that are certain relative to outcomes that are merely highly probable. This is why we are willing to pay a large premium to eliminate a risk entirely rather than just reduce it. The flip side of the certainty effect is the possibility effect. We overweight highly unlikely outcomes. This turns a tiny sliver of hope into a justification for buying a lottery ticket. We are more moved by frequencies than by probabilities. One child in 10,000 evokes a stronger emotional reaction than a 0.01% risk, because it brings to mind an image of a single victim, and we neglect the large denominator. Our natural tendency is to use narrow framing, making decisions in isolation. A rational agent would use broad framing, aggregating choices into a portfolio. Thinking broadly helps overcome irrational loss aversion. Kahneman suggests the book's ideas are best used to refine our educated gossip. By understanding these biases, we can become more accurate critics of the decisions made by leaders, organizations, and ourselves. The book leaves us with 3 vital distinctions: System 1 versus System 2, econs versus humans, and the experiencing versus remembering self. Understanding these is key to understanding human nature. Thinking Fast and Slow is more than a book. It's an owner's manual for the human mind. It reveals the machinery behind our thoughts and provides the tools to think just a little more slowly and a little more clearly. The core of the book is the dynamic between the fast, intuitive System 1 and the slow, lazy System 2. System 1 is the source of our quick judgments and biases, while System 2 is the conscious self that can, with effort, intervene and correct course. Heuristics like availability, representativeness, and anchoring are System 1's efficient but flawed shortcuts. They help us navigate a complex world quickly, but at the cost of predictable errors in judgment. Our minds create coherent stories, which we mistake for truth. This leads to overconfidence, the illusion of understanding the past, and an illusion of skill in predicting the future. We don't choose based on absolute outcomes, but on potential gains and losses. The fear of loss is a more powerful motivator than the hope of gain, a principle that underpins many irrational economic behaviors. The conflict between our experiencing self and our remembering self raises profound questions about happiness. We are governed by the remembering self, which chooses good memories over good moments, a tyranny that shapes our lives. If there is one piece of advice to take from the book, it is to slow down. Recognize the signs of a cognitive minefield: high stakes, complex information, emotional pressure, and engage the deliberate, effortful System 2. The work of Kahneman and Tversky created a new field of study and armed us with a deeper understanding of the human condition. It's a humbling and enlightening journey into the quirks of our own minds. This concludes our deep dive into the core ideas of thinking fast and slow. We've journeyed through the two systems, explored our biases, and questioned the very nature of our happiness. It's a dense and challenging book, but its rewards are immense. Now, as is our tradition at Book Momentum, we will rate the book across our three key categories. How does it hold up in terms of its structure, its writing style, and the depth of its ideas? Let's find out. First, let's evaluate the book's structure and clarity. For a nonfiction work, this is about how well the argument is built and presented. The organization of Thinking Fast and Slow is simply masterful. Kahneman builds his case brick by brick, starting with the foundational two systems model and then using it to explain every subsequent concept. Each of the 5 parts flows logically into the next, creating a cohesive and comprehensive argument. The structure is so clear that it becomes a tool for understanding and remembering the book's complex ideas. For its impeccable organization and the clarity with which it presents decades of research, we give the book's structure a perfect 10 out of 10. It is a model for how to write an accessible book about a complex subject. Next, we rate the writing style and overall engagement. Is the book a pleasure to read, or is it a dry, academic text? Kahneman's style is that of a brilliant professor. It is precise and scholarly, but he makes a huge effort to be clear and engaging for a general audience. The use of personal anecdotes, especially about his work with Tversky, adds a warm, human layer. That said, the concepts are inherently dense. Some chapters, particularly those heavy on statistics or experimental design, can be challenging. It's a book that demands your full attention and is not a light, casual read. For its highly engaging and personal tone, balanced against the sheer density of the material, we rate the writing and engagement a strong 9 out of 10. It makes a difficult topic as enjoyable as it can possibly be. Finally, we assess the depth of the ideas and the book's overall impact. Does it change the way you see the world? The depth here is simply extraordinary. This is the culmination of a lifetime of Nobel Prize-winning research. Kahneman meticulously explains the evidence behind his claims, providing a breathtakingly thorough overview of the field he helped create. This is not an exaggeration. This book will change how you think. Its impact is profound, providing a new lens through which to view your own decisions, the behavior of others, and the structures of society itself. For its staggering depth and genuinely transformative impact on the reader's understanding of the human mind, we give the book's ideas a perfect 10 out of 10. It is a true landmark of popular science. So, with scores of 10 for structure, 9 for writing, and 10 for impact, Thinking Fast and Slow earns an incredible overall rating from Book Momentum. It's an essential read. We recommend this book to anyone interested in psychology, economics, or simply understanding themselves better. It's for leaders, investors, marketers, and anyone who wants to make more informed choices in their life. While it demands effort, the payoff is immense. It provides a toolkit for thinking about thinking that will stay with you long after you finish the final page. In summary, Thinking Fast and Slow is a modern classic. It's a brilliant, challenging, and profoundly useful book that reveals the hidden machinery of our minds and gives us a fighting chance to be a little less irrational. We hope this cinematic summary has given you a deep appreciation for Daniel Kahneman's work. It's a book that truly deserves its legendary status. Links to buy the book are in the description. Your purchase helps support the author and allows us to continue creating these summaries. If you enjoyed this summary, please like, comment with your thoughts on the book, and follow Book Momentum for more. Your engagement helps our channel grow. Thank you for joining us. Every book opens a window into a new world, broadening our vision, challenging our assumptions, and reminding us how powerful ideas can be. Keep reading, keep questioning, and keep discovering the stories that move you. Until next time, may curiosity be your compass, and may you always keep turning the pages.